caught my fancy. You said Arizona Circle being the highlight of your career. You also did something that was really cool that I thought was really fascinating, just from a personal perspective, and that is you pursued professional wrestling.
I did.
Oh yeah.
Can you talk about that experience of going from, this guy who's a fan of wrestling to actually getting in the ring?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm a lifelong wrestling fan. I would say that I watch it the least probably now than as a kid.
Sure.
From let's say 5 years old to 18 years old, I was watching wrestling constantly, and a bunch of my friends, all in our neighborhood. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, home of Ric Flair, and so wrestling was kind of part of that world. It was either wrestling or NASCAR. And so most of the kids in my neighborhood, it's like how we bonded and were friends with each other. We would all bring $5 to one of our friends' house to pay for the pay-per-views, and we built a ring in the backyard of one of our friends to do professional wrestling. But the thing is, we always appreciated it more than, oh, this is an excuse to hurt your friends or try dangerous moves. We would all sit down before we did these backyard wrestling shows for nobody, and we would come up with the plots. What's going to happen in this one? No one cared if they won or lost because they all knew it was part of the performance of the show, right? So there was no ego. And it was a really cool, creative thing that I did as a kid. And I always loved that aspect of wrestling. I'm also I love fitness. And so it was a merger of theater and drama plus health and fitness is what professional wrestling is in a lot of ways. And so I always appreciated that.
At what age did you realize it was performance?
Pretty early on, to be honest with you. Because I used to watch it with my dad, and he would get really into it, but he also was never the kind of wrestling fan he was never a mark, he was never thought they were actually hated each other. Mm-hmm. He understood how it worked, and he would explain that to me. And I think that made me appreciate it even more. I don't watch a movie and go, wait a minute, they're not coming up with the lines on the fly.
Did kids ever try to argue with you that it was real?
Oh,
Because I had some kids at school that were insistent, no, it's real. And
sure. Yeah. Well, it'd be like, well, then why did he hit him with a chair? And I'm because that's just another part of the plotting.
Right.
But so I always kind of knew about what it was and how it worked. Not the intricate details of how it worked, and finding that out was the difference between appreciating a car and actually learning the parts of an engine. Mm-hmm. So I always kind of had this background love, and even as in my teens, I remember saying to my parents, I was I think I might want to be a professional wrestler. And which they basically did with all of the careers that I brought to them, like a dog bringing a dead bird to the doorstep. They were like, well, we'll look and see if there's some schools. Chief Wahoo McDaniels has a school out in Greenville that maybe, we can sign you up over the summer.
They didn't want to send you Stu Hart's dungeon?
No, they were going to send me to Canada. But they were maybe, there is and so they investigated that, and it actually kind of made it feel oh, this is a possibility. But yeah, so I kind of just had to move on with my life, went to college, and followed a career. And
you wrestled in high school.
I did. I wrestled collegiate style in high school. Mm-hmm. So, but I understood the difference. That was more I'm a wrestler, but I'm not. I didn't have any pretense.
Professional.
I didn't have any,
yes.
Yeah. not paid. But I always kind of had it in the back of my head. I was I always appreciated it. And every couple of years I would get back into it. If I had cable, I would be I'm going to watch Raw. Or, when it started appearing on Hulu, or when I had moved out to LA and it's on Hulu, I'm in my 20s. I'm sure, I'll put it on. I'd always catch back and always appreciate it and always sing its praises. Because there was still a lot of people that didn't get it and didn't understand it and thought it was this different kind of thing. And I was it's art. And so fast forward to working at Rooster Teeth, they started experimenting with the idea of doing documentaries, and kind of the first one was the disconnected one, right?
Mm-hmm. It's Barbara and Blaine, undergoing a week without technology.
Yeah, so it started I guess the first one technically was the
Let's Play Live,
but then it was we should
We can broaden this out.
Yeah, like it. So now it
Yeah.
feels like a reality television show. So let's come up with a concept and we'll do that. And so they did one with Barbara and Blaine. And then the second one was Bernie and Gavin going to India to talk about like meditation and ASMR and stuff like that. And it became a running gag in the Funhouse office that, this is just a wish fulfillment.
If you have a dream,
Sure.
Yeah, like I've always wanted to surf in Hawaii, and then you pitch that as a Rooster Teeth doc like that. So that became what it felt like for the Rooster Teeth doc pitch process.
I just want to point out that I'm glad it felt like that to you as well, because I believe when that was released, we were like,
yeah.
yeah,
So, it was literally just a free trip to India.
Yeah, right.
I think the doc ended up turning out pretty well, but like it's still the concept just came from. Can I go to India?
I'd really like to go there. Yeah, right.
Yeah. But yeah, so I jokingly, but because I also thought it was a good concept, pitched, well, I've always had the dream of being a professional wrestler. You guys should send me to wrestling school. And that was my pitch. And they were like, we'll think about it. And then eventually it just kept pushing it. And I was like, well, okay. And I had to explain to them the crossover between kind of YouTube and professional wrestling.
the gaming community.
The gaming community and professional wrestling, but also how like it's big personalities and it's kind of like, all this stuff, and it'd be really compelling. So then they finally were like, okay, let's do it. And then I basically said to Lawrence, I was like, hey, I had just casually as a friend started introducing him to this world. And I also know that he's the kind of person who likes to set challenges for himself. And this was like, so he was doing like trying all kinds of stuff all out of his wheelhouse, going to stuntman school and stuff like that. And so I was like, hey, would you want to do this? And he was like, yeah. So then it became he and I going down this path together. In terms of the actual thing, I won't waste all our time talking about it. It was an amazing experience, but it was also a nightmare because the budget and schedule meant that I had 4 days to prepare for a professional wrestling match.
Wait. So you went to 4 classes or 4?
Oh, it was 4 days.
On a Monday, right?
So I think the first class was on a Monday. It was a Monday night. And so we went to this school in Moore Park, Millennium Pro Wrestling Academy.
Which is
amazing.
Context for anybody that does not know Los Angeles. It's like outside of LA, so you have to drive an hour plus to get
like
there.
90 minutes, potentially up to 2 hours in traffic.
Jeez.
So like the first one was like, okay, well, just to get you started, you go on a Monday night to one of their Monday night classes and then just go. And so we had been assigned this trainer, Danny, who was one of the trainers there. And he was like, all right, let's just figure out how to get you to not die in a match.
Right.
And then there were a couple of other training sessions that were set up to be for more on camera, like look good on camera and figure stuff out. And then the head of the school, Logan Xavier, he knew that Danny knew how to get us training for a specific thing. And so we would do the on-camera training, but then there was a lot of other we went to a bunch of classes. Still, though, it was about 4 days of just getting our ass beat. Because, like, you get broken down. There's a reason you probably should only train a handful of days a week. Because, like, you do 50 bumps, and then your back is just busted.
Well, and also, you guys, it's not like you guys had been doing this for any time where you'd built a tolerance for it.
Yeah, you work up to that, right? And then you don't notice, it's not noticing the pain, but your body's prepared for it. This was like, I'm still in pain, and now I have to go do 50 body slams and like take suplexes and stuff.
Wait, I just want to be like really clear. I want to make sure I'm understanding you here. So you're saying that from the first time you walked into the school, 4 days later you had a match.
It was, so the first night, it was Monday night, and we had a match on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
But then we didn't train one of those days.
That's insane.
I feel like you had a little bit of a leg up than just an average person that's never dabbled in it.
Oh yeah, because I had backyard wrestling. It sounds stupid, but like that whole like sitting and powwowing and understanding how wrestling works as a kid, I knew what goes into a drop kick, right? and we knew how to hip toss someone, because it's not a judo throw, it's hooking the arm and then they jump, like, so you understand how a lot of suplexing and protecting the neck and stuff.
And you were also very fit already going into
I mean, I feel like probably
trained.
just because of how much I exercise and work out, I have pretty good body.
Not that what you
motion
did
or
in that
whatever.
week is anything to diminish, because it was like, and it was a side of him that I never saw, because James is the pinnacle of health and fitness, and you know, being in great condition, and he was coming home just like battered and bruised,
Yeah.
giant welts and in pain, and that's not really like, that's not him.
Yeah.
You know, and or him complaining about anything that he's doing that's physical, that's not really he usually craves like more weight, you know, put on more weight.
Yeah. But yeah, so then yeah, Saturday night they had their big show, and that's when we had our tag team match, and we were also still going to work during the week.
Yes.
So we would go into work at 8:39, and then around 1 or 2 we'd pack up and then go with the documentary crew up to Simi Valley and then go train basically until 10 o'clock at night. And the only reason we were able to do it is not because we got that good at wrestling. It's because the school and the trainers are great and experienced, and they knew what we needed to learn to put on a good show. And just the right amount. And they're like, we're only going to focus on those things. And the cool part is it wasn't a choreographed match.
Oh, neat.
The best thing about the whole documentary was the way it was set up by Logan, who ran the school, and like, he was like, this will be your curriculum for 4 days. He said, I don't want you to meet the guys that you're wrestling until the night of the match, because that's what most wrestlers do. Most of them don't spend 4 weeks in a school training and working on their match to then have the match in front of the crowd. Most of them get booked someplace, they drive, they show up, and then the booker says, you're booked against this guy who's themed like an army man. And then the two of you have 15 minutes to sit down and figure out a match. And then that's how most wrestlers work. And so they teamed us up with Ray Rosas, who, by the way, is just a storied and amazing Southern California wrestler. He's just fantastic. And so we sat down with him, and he was like, what do you know? And what do you feel comfortable with? And then together we basically plotted out the match and like figured out the beats and stuff. And he's like, if things get out of hand, I'll slow you down. And then, but I want you to have fun out there. And then like, let's go. And here's how we'll start it. Here's how we'll end it. Everything in between, let's just kind of feel it out. And so he's the reason we got through that match, I think, as well as we did, because he's great. But yeah, it was awesome. And I think the whole testament was to how awesome that community is, that wrestling community, especially the Southern California wrestling community. It's like, it isn't ego. It's weird. It's the only sport where there's one winner, but the loser was proactively working to make the winner look as good as possible the whole time.
Right.
And it was a team effort. So, you know, when John Cena's holding the belt over his head and Dolph Ziggler's lying face down unconscious, they're both celebrating together in their own way, because like they made that match happen. If the crowd is cheering, it doesn't matter who's beaten up on the ground.
Yeah, no,
I think
wow, look at that. It's in depth.
That's what's cool about wrestling. That's what I will forever respect about it, you know.
And you did an amazing frog splash.
I did want to do something. It was either going to be a 450 or a frog splash.
Wow.
And I was like, I'll go with the frog splash.